Meeple Nation Podcast, episode 482. Our top 5 territory building games.
Welcome, citizens, to Meeple Nation. Grab your favorite beverage, pull up a chair, warm up those dice, and join us at the game table as we discuss board games and the board gaming world. Each week, the hosts of Meeple Nation share their love for board games and the amazing memories that come from playing games with some very outstanding people. Let us now join our hosts in their natural habitat, the game table.
We are the hosts of Meeple Nation. I'm Nathan Howard.
I'm Dave Holliday.
I'm Mogan Howard.
I'm Andy Holliday.
And I'm Douglas Stewart.
Meeple Nation is sponsored by GameToppersLLC.com. Go visit GameToppersLLC.com. Check out what they have to offer. They have some amazing and extremely high quality products. Berkey really has put a lot of time into making sure that highest quality products in his line of amazing goodness that's on his website.
Amazing goodness is a great description.
Yes.
That's a great quality to have, too.
It really is.
Amazing goodness.
And
I wish I came with more amazing goodness.
Nathan,
I strive for amazing goodness
Nathan,
in my life.
You are the equivalent of amazing goodness.
What is it? What are they called, Caden?
The Risley Bear.
Do I drip with it? Am I?
Are you dripping?
I'm dripping.
We're gonna get into some junior high slang.
Yeah,
You're dripping, man. You got the Riz. Sounds terrible.
Super sus.
they make a pill for that, right? An ointment, at least.
At least a cream.
From game toppers to mats to cup holders, dice towers. We even have some privacy screens that will slide onto the topper for specific games where you need to kind of keep things a little bit more, your cards private. Maybe you're because they have a groove for your cards to go into if you want to use the groove, but you don't want your neighbor next to you cheating, spying on your cards.
Talking to you, Doug.
Got the wandering eyes.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Got a case of the wandering eyes.
You can always throw up a privacy screen.
Who me?
Problem solved. Anyway, they have great things, great products, high quality. Their mats are gorgeous. Check them out, GameToppersLLC.com. You will not be disappointed in what you find.
We are the hosts of Meeple Nation. I'm Douglas Stewart.
I'm Nathan Howard.
I am Andy Holliday.
Okay, so I've written a little bit of a skit for us.
I was reading over this, and
But we need somebody to do Dave. We need somebody to do Dave's voice. Who can do Dave's voice?
Not much. I can't. I don't go deep like this.
not
don't know.
much.
Okay, perfect. You're it, Nathan. You're gonna
Thanks
read.
for noticing.
You're gonna read. Nailed it! Wow. Okay, you're gonna read Dave's parts. All right, here we go. All right, this is uncut and
Unplugged.
unplugged, unpracticed, I think is the word I was looking for there. Okay, here we go. Hey guys, what's happening?
Not much.
Yeah, not much.
Whoa, what's got you so down?
Frustrated. We just can't.
Dang it!
No, that's how you should say
Oh,
it.
that's right. We just can't find any good board game websites.
Yeah, and we just want a website with cool blogs, photos, and social media links. I mean, come on.
Well, have you checked out MeepleNation.com?
No, but does it have it does have a nice ring to it. MeepleNation.com? Awesome.
Dude, I'm checking it out right now. This website's legit.
That's right, Dave. Too legit to quit. You can even access all of their podcast episodes.
I almost said interrupting again. Hey, this is Nathan. I couldn't help but hearing you talk about MeepleNation.com. Aren't those guys like super edgy?
No. Unless Nathan goes off on one of his Kickstarter rants, it's super mild.
Huh? These guys sound like total...
No, it's just say, Nathan, huh?
Nathan, huh? That guy sounds like a total...
Oh, wait, whoa. No, he's a really cool guy, I promise.
If you say so, I guess.
Isn't this going to cost us like tons of cash? Anything, right? This is going to cost us money.
Yeah. What's the catch?
There's no catch. Just an awesome board game website full of episodes, blogs, photos, and more. But if you'd like, you can follow their Patreon link to help support the podcast.
Whoa.
That is so awesome.
Hey, check this out.
Nice. Way to go, guys.
That was enjoyable. I can't believe you just pushed that right out.
Interrupting.
Laughing hysterically.
Feel like you guys are making fun of me.
So good.
This week we are discussing our discussion of our top 5 discussed territory building games. Last week we talked about a large selection of games. This week we're going to narrow it down to 5 each. And since there's only 3 of us, that's going to be a total of
15.
15.
Wait.
Yes, 15.
Good
I
job.
had to pull off a sock to check my toes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
15.
15.
All right, my number 5 is Ecos First Continent. This is one that Nathan, you introduced me to. I honestly, I got to be honest, I probably wouldn't have played this as many times as I have if my daughter Amara was not in love with this game.
Oh, she really loves this game.
She really does. It's one of her go-tos, right? Whenever we're trying to figure out what games we want to play, she has her like 4 or 5 games that are like, I don't know how often Gizmos hits the table at my house, but it's a lot. Well, Ecos falls into that category. She is always in the mood to play it. When we have come over here on Thursday nights, sometimes I get off school a little bit later and you guys are in the middle of a game, her and I will sit down and play Ecos. And it's one of those that plays great 2 players, plays great at 4 players. I mean, it's just a really, really enjoyable, fun game. It's interesting to see as you're building the map and putting the different terrain pieces on there, especially with the expansion where you're trying to if you have one of the expansion cards where you're trying to build one of the terrain features like that are actual features on the earth, like certain mountains or certain, like the Nile River is one of the features you can try to build in the game, but everything has to line up perfectly based on what is on the card that's in your hand. And that can be difficult especially with a high player count, because you have far less control of how that board is morphing and how it's being built versus a 2-player game. But it's one of those games that is so much fun. You're placing mountains, placing trees, animals, water, all the while you're gaining points based on the cards that are in front of you, which are different for everybody. It's a very unique game. One thing I like about it the most is the fact that I don't have no idea how many times I've played it, but every time I've played it, I've been able to go for a different strategy, and the game's been completely different.
I've really enjoyed my plays of Ecos. This is one that I'm anxiously trying to get my wife to play. We talked about last week of Land versus Sea down on my table. Well, Land versus Sea is sitting right next to Ecos. That is also on my hit list, I guess, to get Cheryl to play, because I think this is a game that she very much will enjoy too. The pattern discovery in it, the work that you're trying to do to develop those land constellation isn't the right word, but those land configurations to be able to score those patterns and to be able to score those points and to gather the right animals and get the animals in the right places. All of that combined, there's kind of a lot going on, but it is very simple to teach, quick to play, very good game.
Yeah, it kind of kills me that the one time we finally got to sit down and play this, we got about 4 rounds in, and then I had to leave, go take care of an emergency airport run. I had to go pick up my wife and daughter, which is a different story. Yeah, I should have. It probably would have been worth it. No, I had to leave, but I was really enjoying it. This is one that I really want to try again.
Okay, this is one that will have to go on the list. I've been making a mental list of the games that you want to try out, Doug. So
good.
And we knocked one of those off the list. So we now have Wasteland Express Delivery Service and Ecos that I have on my current list.
Absolutely. Can't wait.
And in 2 days, that list will be gone because Andy will have forgotten it.
That's not true.
2 whole days?
2 whole days.
You're giving him a lot of credit.
That's why that's not true.
Nice. Okay, my number 5 is Planet Unknown. And we did talk a little bit about this last week, but I absolutely adore that little Lazy Susan component in the middle that has all the polyomino pieces in it.
That's such a great element.
It's fantastic. It's so good. And you're rotating this thing around, and on your turn, you get to choose where you want it to stop and what piece you want to take. But I also love that everybody else gets to take a piece on your turn. So the downtime in this game is minimal. Yeah, it's really good that way. But the actual puzzle of building out your planet and putting all those pieces, making them fit, managing your rovers, you have those 5 tracks that you're climbing up. You're managing asteroids and trying to make things line up, and there's, water space can only go adjacent to other water spaces, and there's some different rules, and then you have some cards and everything like that. But as far as like that territory building aspect goes, where you're taking all those pieces, you're building out the planet, you're trying to maximize your score, great components, great puzzle, minimal downtime. I love Planet Unknown. Wonderful game.
Planet Unknown is a fantastic game. The only downside that I have of the game is that Lazy Susan needs a cover.
And it comes in a big box and can be intimidating.
If you ask my wife, yes. But after learning it, she very much enjoys that game.
So that piece, as it sits in the box, does not have a cover?
No.
So those pieces can just fly on out.
Yep. If you tip the box whatsoever, take some time you shuffle. That's what you're doing. You're shuffling.
You're just shuffling them. That makes me wonder if the second printing will have a cover for that. Because
I'm hoping so.
Yeah, I know that's coming soon.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is good because there are quite a few people that are looking to get a copy of that.
Talking to you, Sarah.
There you go, Sarah.
So my number 5 is a game I introduced. Did you get to play this at BGG Con, Doug? I can't remember if you did or not.
I can see your list, but it's not numbered, so I don't know which one you're talking about.
Web of Power. We're talking Web of Power.
Web of Power. I have not played this.
Okay, so we played it at BGG Con. I've owned this game for years and years. It's been re-implemented into Awari, which is actually also available on BGA.
Okay, I have played that.
Okay, you've played Awari?
I played it on BGA. I have not played a physical version.
So it's very similar. Awari's had the rules upgraded a little bit, but Web of Power, you have territories in Europe there, and on your turn you have 3 cards in your hand, and you can play up to 2 pieces. You can play 2 cards of the same color to place 2 pieces in the same region, or you can place 1 color and 2 matching cards from a different region as a wild, or you can just play 1 piece in 1 region, and you can put cloisters onto the map. There's influence that you can put in the cities, and as you expand your control over these territories, very much an area control game. However, it has a very short play time of 50 to 60 minutes, which is great. And this is, I talked last year, how about just last week? I probably talked about last year too, the year 2000. But the year 2000 had a lot of games that came out that were kind of pivotable.
Pivotable.
Goodness.
Absolutely.
Pivotal. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
No, it's pivotable. Yeah.
It's pivotable.
Yeah.
But we're pivotal in my gaming development and my gaming taste as the hobby grew. And Web of Power came out in that same year as Carlos Magnus that I talked about last week. But Web of Power I've had a ton of fun with this game and played it over and over and over again. I wish I was tracking games back then, because that would have been very nice to have that information, how many times I've played this game. But Web of Power was great. And Andy, you got to play it at BGG Con.
I did.
What was your feelings of it?
I was pleasantly surprised. A lot of those early games, I tend to I'm left wanting more to it than what's really there. And that's just because that was the kind of like what you talked about, Nathan, where it was almost the springboard to where we are now. A lot of those games were. And, you hate to judge a book by its cover, but it's really not a beautiful game.
No, And back then,
Most weren't.
yeah.
But it was a lot of fun. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was great.
Yeah. And you've played Awari. What did you think of that, Doug?
Yeah, I actually really liked Awari quite a bit. It's funny. I had a friend invite me to play this, and so I did a quick rules read, and I didn't understand fully how to play it, but I absolutely crushed him. And so after that game, I was like, okay, I actually probably had to read the rules and understand how this game really works. So I did, and I went into our next games feeling much more confident and absolutely got destroyed like 3 or 4 times in a row. So that was kind of my experience with Awari, but I did really enjoy it. That territory sort of development and that whole process of placing those out. There's a lot of strategy there. Like every time you take a turn, you're really kind of noodling out exactly where you want to place those discs and how you want to manage your cards. And I like that quite a bit.
Yeah, and Awari's changed. Awari has cleaned up those rules a little bit, and the board presence is a lot more attractive. Andy,
That's good.
but both games very much enjoyable, and make my number 5.
All right, number 4s. My number 4 is an oldie, but a goodie. I actually have 2 copies of this game. I kind of feel like Nathan right now saying that, but I did buy 2 copies on purpose. So I feel a little less like Nathan.
And what was that purpose?
Because I wanted a smaller version of it for traveling. And that is Acquire. This is one that I have some very fond memories of. I bought the really cool version with the cool huge plastic buildings. So with Acquire is you're building companies, you're placing tiles and trying to do hostile takeovers and everything else. So the territory building aspect of it is you're building companies and creating companies, trying to buy stock. My wife really enjoys this game. And when we first got married, we played this quite a bit, and we decided that we wanted that big, huge board just wasn't very conducive to travel, or that huge box. So we bought the bookshelf, those old bookshelf games from what was that, the 60s or 70s?
70s,
The 70s. We bought the bookshelf version of Acquire, and the footprint's a lot smaller on it, and she would set it on her lap, and we'd play while we were on road trips.
Oh, fun.
And we had so much fun doing it. It was such a great time. And I wish I could get her to play more games, and maybe that's one I can get her to come back and play. I think that one and probably Empire Builder are her probably 2 favorite games that we've played, which is really funny because she doesn't like long games, but Empire Builder is definitely a long game. But Acquire is also one of those, and that one's close to my heart mostly because I enjoy the gameplay, but the really fun memories I have of it with when my kids were really little, and it was just my wife and I, and they'd be sleeping in the back seat, and we're driving to South Dakota or whatever, and playing Acquire while we're on the freeway. It was kind of fun.
Talk about distracted driving.
I wasn't distracted at all. Got to stay awake somehow.
True.
Yeah, this has been around for a long time. It is still one that I have not played, but it did catch my eye because the English version did just get an updated 2023 edition. So I think it's still in pre-order currently, but it should be hitting shelves pretty quick. It looks good. The cover of it makes let me go back. It looks good. I really like the cover. It's got kind of a nice artistic cityscape that looks really nice.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how because it has so many different, they've printed it so many different times. It's kind of interesting to see what they come up with every time there's a reprint.
So let me just read a couple things to you here. Let's see if this gets you jazzed up at all. Updated board size, 9x12. Space designations printed on the board. Having not played it, I don't know what that means, but...
So each tile has it's a grid, and each tile has a coordinate. So there's numbers and letters, and you play that tile on its appropriate space. Now, if you get enough tiles together, then you can create a company if there's one available. So not having to line stuff up, yeah, that's super helpful.
Nice. New font on the tiles for improved legibility, and classic mode or tycoon mode. Play with or without tertiary stockholder merger bonuses.
Do you want this ordered?
Sure. Purchasing games live on the podcast. Love it.
So that's my number 4. Doug, what's your number 4?
My number 4 is a game that, and if you've been listening to more recent episodes, you're going to think that I'm just trying to sneak this into every list and conversation, and I'm really not. When we talk about territory building, development, expansion, all these things, I absolutely love Dinogenics. And we've talked about this in terms of building a dinosaur park, and we've talked about it sort of through a different lens before. But that board that sits in front of you that has the grid on it, that allows you to construct your buildings and actually lay out the different territories of your park, being the pens that you're going to put dinosaurs in, being able to develop that park, try to keep all the dinosaurs in and keep them from rampaging. I love that aspect of it. It's one of my favorite things. In fact, this territory management part of the game, that park building, is probably the biggest reason why I love Dinogenics so much. So it had to go on the list. Number 4, Dinogenics.
So when I was making the list and I saw that Dinogenics was on there, I was wondering how that fit in. But then as soon as you started describing that, I mean, putting those pins together very much goes along with like Dinosaur World and Dinosaur Island, kind of that same sort of mechanic in there. And it makes me think this is a game that James will love because he will allow his dinosaurs to eat all of his patrons.
Yes. And good for James.
He loves to play his own game.
Yeah, I will try to keep mine safe, but I love to watch people be eaten by dinosaurs, even if it's in the imaginary halls of my brain.
Yeah.
Nathan, what's your number 4?
My number 4 is Bunny Kingdom. Bunny Kingdom is a very simple game. It's designed by Andrew Garfield, who's done several games, including Magic the Gathering. It's a very simple math game where you're trying to get as many towers aligned with as many resources, and you will times the number of unique resources times the number of towers. And by towers, you can have a single tower, a double tower, or the coveted triple tower. Times those number of towers times the number of unique resources create in your kingdom, and your kingdom consists of orthogonally connected territories that you own. And you own that territory by placing a card down that matches that territory number, and it's on a grid. I think it's a 10 by 10 grid, if I recall correctly. It's random of what you're going to get, random in the sense that you're drafting. And so you'll draft a card, pass it, and so as your ability to get is kind of random, but the strategy you can use and the face-off that you have with your opponent if they're going for the same territory. But all of that combined brings together a really good, simple math game where you're just timesing those resources times those turrets.
And whoever has the carrot at the end, the magic carrot wins?
Is
that the game we're talking about?
No, that's a very dumb game. You should be hitting the knees for even bringing up.
I actually concur.
And sadly, I think I own almost all the expansions for that dumb game.
I think I do too.
Bunny Kingdom, much better than the other Bunny game. That's Bunny Kingdom.
Bunny Kingdom was great. I think I've played it twice with you. It's been a while. It's been a minute since we played, but I think you destroyed us every single time.
Apparently, I'm a pretty bad teacher at it because, I mean, that's one of those games that it's really tough to teach the strategy of it. And
well, it kind of depends on what cards you end up with a lot of times.
For sure.
And I think part of it is just playing it to get familiarized with what is in the game so you know what to keep while you're drafting, which I think is the case with most games that have a drafting element to it. You kind of have to know what, especially at the beginning of the game, okay, yeah, I'm going to take this because chances are this is going to pay off in the long run. If you don't know what's in the game, yeah, you have no clue what you're supposed to be taking.
Yeah. That's kind of to the pain, right? The unknown that you don't really get that until you experience it. And it's tough to put all that in a teach, to say, this kind of a strategy, this kind of a strategy, especially depending on the personality type of whomever you're teaching.
Well, there's that. Plus, there's a lot of synergy with the different cards and everything else. So that's something that is almost near impossible to teach, because it really comes down to experience in just a ton of different ways that you can play the game, and just different strategies you can take. And that's just not something you can just, I don't think you don't take the time in a teach to do that. You almost have to play it a couple of times to get the full experience, I feel.
Yeah. I've played this game with my wife several times, and it's just been released on BGA. So there is a digital implementation of it that you can play as well. I started a game with my wife, but she seems hesitant to play it since she is rusty on the rules. So, but Bunny Kingdom is my number 4.
All right, so we are down to our number 3s. My number 3 is the same as one of your number 1s, and I'm not going to give that away, so it's still a surprise. But my number 3 is an amazing game, More to Come.
More to Come.
Yeah. It was amazing. I've only played it once, and it hit my top 5. I mean, it was that good.
Again, more later.
More later on that.
And I guess if that's the game we're playing here, then I'll just say my number 3.
No, I only did that because it was someone's number 1.
Oh, I see. Well, then I'm just going to dive into my number 3, which is Dead Reckoning. I really love Dead Reckoning. Just as a game, as a design, the pirate theme, or that sort of building and managing a ship theme, right? Because you're not necessarily pirates, though you can be. Everything about that game I really enjoy. But one of my favorite parts is the way you explore out into the ocean. So when you move to an uncharted area, you are going to pull one of those clear plastic tiles out. Well, it's really more of a card than a tile, but you're going to pull it out and slap it down, and then it is going to have some things on it that will allow you to take advantage of in some way, shape, or form, right? So sometimes it'll be an island that you can build on, or it will give you loot, or other things. But that process of exploring the ocean and then developing those ocean land masses, I just love that. I love that process.
I think that they have done, when I think of an area control game, because there is area control in this.
For sure.
And the way they implemented it is probably my favorite I've ever seen. In many ways, want someone to come and take over the island that you control. Because when you control an island, you're going to put your influence tokens on there. As soon as you gain control of it, you put a permanent influence token on the island that can never be removed. And one of the objectives of the game is to get 6 of those. So you can have multiples on the same island. So if someone takes it over from you, they place a permanent cube on there. And if you take it back, you now have 2 cubes on there. Once again, if you can ease the pain a little bit off of those area control games to where it's like, okay, well, yeah, now I can go back and get another permanent influence on that island. It can kind of help to where it doesn't hurt quite so much, and you don't feel like the take that isn't quite as brutal as it could be. At the end of the game, it gets maybe a little more so, because those certain islands can be worth a ton of points at the end. There's a bit of a fight to make sure you get those. But overall, this is such a wonderful game. This is one I backed, and I was so happy that it was not. I've said this before, that it could have totally been me paying a nerd tax, because the way the ship battles are on this is it's basically like a little dice tower, but you drop your cubes down in it, and they come out the side of the boat like your broadside cannons
of a ship. It's so good.
It's so good. And then wherever they land on the little board that catches those cubes determines what happens during that battle. That's what drew me into it, that dumb little gimmicky thing, but I still love it. But the game is great, and it's a card crafter. Of all John DeClare's card crafting games, I think this is his strongest and his best.
Absolutely.
And I mean, hands down. And the card crafting's great, but adding that with the exploration and the ship upgrades that you get to do and everything else, it makes for such a robust and fun experience.
Yeah, and as you kind of go out and explore, and then you kind of develop those ports, right? You can throw your castles or forts on them, or load cannons on them, and all that kind of stuff. You really do get a fun sense of like, I'm building out my territory, I'm carving out my own little empire, I'm developing the high seas, exploring and developing the high seas, and I love that part of it.
Yeah, it's great. It's a very great implementation of a card crafting territory building game.
Really enjoy the thematicness of this game. Is that a word? Totally
Yes.
is now. Just the feel of it. And I fell victim to of getting attacked and sunk, but still very much enjoyed the game. Again, you have that exploration of you're going out to those islands and exploring. After you explore something new is coming out. A lot of discovery in that game. Like you said, how those attacks are resolved as they come out the side of the ship and where they land is great. It's huge.
Well, not only that, it can be beneficial to be attacked, right? As long as you don't get sunk. Getting sunk is terrible, but you can actually end up with quite a bit of gold and barrels, cargo, that you can use to spend on your advancements while you're out at sea. Getting attacked can actually end up being a good thing, depending on how your cubes land when you do the broadside. Which I also think is great when they've made it so where, yes, you're fighting each other, but it's not so brutal. It's not so take that, and it doesn't hurt quite so much. Like I said, unless you get sunk. Getting sunk is terrible when it happens because you can lose quite a bit of stuff. But
right.
But otherwise, it's really not terrible. It's not bad. You just got to make sure you repair your ship, get those crew leveled up.
Yep, and then you can't bury your treasure and hope that nobody else is going to go pick it up. Because I've had that happen too.
So that was my number 3, Dead Reckoning. Nathan, what's your number 3?
My number 3 is a classic from 2011. Can you call it a classic? Is 2011 make it a classic?
We're really close to that, maybe.
All right. This is a fun game called Tokonoko, which is a bamboo building, panda eating, or panda feeding.
I was going to say, we're not eating the pandas. The pandas are eating the bamboo.
The pandas are eating the bamboo. Yes, got to make sure you clarify that correctly. And garden growing, set collecting, pattern collecting, wide variety of different mechanics that are in this game, but makes it very enjoyable. And the table presence is nice when you're stacking the bamboo. It has a nice 3D feel and look to it. There's a large version of this game that's out there that I always kind of want to get. I don't have a shelf big enough to put it on.
It does look really nice, though.
It does look really nice.
That deluxe version looks really cool.
Yeah. Tokonoko is a great game, 2 to 4 players, 30 to 45 minutes. You move your pandas, you move the gardener, you're trying to get that bamboo to grow, lay out those patterns. Such a great game and such a wide variety of mechanics and such a simple little game as well. And that's Tokonoko.
All right, we are down to our number 2s. My number 2 is one we've already talked about, and that is Dead Reckoning.
Still good.
Still amazing.
My number 2 is one that I gave a little bit of love to on our last episode. A newer game, but I have had a chance to play it several times now, and I absolutely love it. This is Revive. I waited for a long time for this one to come in the mail, and it finally showed up. I tore into it, played it with my daughter. We've played it at game night, and I've played it a couple other times with family and friends. Revive, it has the goods, so to speak. This is one that is going to stay on my shelf and be there and be used and pulled off regularly, I believe, for a very long time. Mentioned this last week, but one of the primary mechanisms that this uses, or one of the things that it does that makes it so great, is just the randomness of that board in the middle. You've got some starting tiles, and then everything else gets randomized and flipped over, and then you go through this process, and it's only one of several things that you're doing in the game, but you are paying resources to explore those tiles, which give you rewards. Then you get to flip those tiles. You get to orient them the way you want, which is a very strategic decision depending on what's out on the board. And then you get to build on and populate those tiles as you kind of move to the corners of the map and try to build out and explore or meet objectives and make your engine sort of sing, so to speak, as you're going through and playing the game. I love the territory exploration and development in this game. It's absolutely fantastic.
You know, what I found really interesting about this when we played it was one of your actions that you can do is you can play a card. You'll slide a card underneath your player board, and the cards will have resources or some sort of an ability on the top of the card and the bottom of the card. Decide which slot you want to slot that into on your board, and depending on which slot you choose, you're going to either slide it on the top and activate the top ability of the card, or in the bottom and activate the bottom ability of the card. I guess I found myself trying to strategize exactly which cards to play where, because some of them you really would like to use both of them, and having to have that choice of where am I going to place that. Not only that, but trying to get those moved out from those slots, because there are ways to get those slots cleared out and have them go to your discard pile, because whatever's in your discard pile, you're going to get at the beginning of the next round as your hand. So it can benefit you to not only play those cards, but get them moved off onto the board so that they're going to go into your hand the next round.
Yep, cycle them through, right? Play them and then cycle them into your discard pile. It's really powerful.
Yeah, which can be tricky to do, but like you said, incredibly powerful if you can get as many cards as possible cycled through, because that opens up a world of resources and different things that you can potentially achieve the next round. And I love that planning aspect for the next round to come, and the development of your board with is it the technologies? Is that what it is? I can't remember, with the 3 tracks.
Yeah, you kind of have, it's just called the machine. But it has your 3 tracks in the middle. Yeah.
And that unlocks different abilities that you can use energy for. And just overall, there's a lot going on in the game.
Yep.
But everything meshes so well, and the asymmetry of the abilities. And it was interesting because I thought Dave's ability, and when we played, was like incredibly powerful, and yet he got completely destroyed, and which still baffles me.
Well, I played a game with his character, and I think better than he did. But it totally is just one of those like familiarity and sort of trying them all, understanding how everything works. Because if you can really leverage those abilities and learn how to leverage those abilities, I think you can do phenomenally well with all of the tribes, I guess is what they are. I mean, it's a character, but you represent a tribe. And so, I love that asymmetry. And you've already said this, but like, there's a lot going on. It's a lot to try to just, talk about and explain, in audio format, but that machine board, the dual use on your cards, managing all those slots, you actually have these tiles that you can pull and put into your machine at certain points and onto your board. And then there's this whole mechanism where you can cascade the effects when you play your cards. So you're not just getting the effect on the card, but you're getting the effect on potentially other cards and other tiles. And then you're just going out and exploring that map, trying to get out to those scoring locations in the corners. This game just hits for me every level. I absolutely love it.
I'm very excited to play it.
Yeah, I think you'll like it, Nathan.
You will. Yeah, I think you'll really like this one.
It's really, really well done. Games that have the asymmetry like that, it makes me appreciate the time that is most likely put into these, the amount of play testing and balancing that the designers have to go through to get everything to where it works, and not any one thing is more powerful than another. That I know that takes a lot of work. So as a gamer, I definitely appreciate that.
And that's my number 2.
Nathan, what's your number 2?
My number 2 is Planet Unknown, and we've already talked about that.
I'm just happy that we've gotten Planet Unknown to the table as much as we have lately.
Yeah, it's a very good game.
Yeah, the last time we played this was here at HQ, and I brought my wife with me, and she played it, and also thoroughly enjoyed it. So eventually this is one that might have to make it onto my game shelf as well, just because if a game is something she'll play, then it's worthy.
Cool. Right?
Yeah, it's good.
It's worth it to get.
Yeah, I may have to pick it up as well, because it's another one of those that I know my kids would love. Plus, it's on a Lazy Susan. Who doesn't want that?
Who doesn't want that?
All right, we are down to our number 1 picks.
Are we down to or up to?
Let's count down.
It's countdown.
Down to.
Okay.
It's down to, yeah.
Down to. All right. Get down with it.
I have spoken.
All right, number 1 for me is another older game.
How old is it?
That's a good question. Where's the link?
How old, Andy?
2011.
Just like, let me look it up and see when it was done.
Oh, okay. Go for it then.
So it was published in 2011. By Nathan's standards, it's a classic. I'm not sure if it is, but it's close. But it's one of those that, I look at the box, the original box that was published in, and it looks like it should be a classic because it looks like one of those games you're like, oh, that's like got to be 2000s when that game came out. But the Castles of Burgundy is everybody has their own kingdom, and you're gaining tiles off the main board to build, and you can build where everybody has the same layout on their kingdom. So the kingdom's going to be separated by colors. You're going to have your brown colors for your buildings, your dark green colors for your castles, and so on. So the tiles that you play have to match. You're going to gain points whenever you complete an area, and everything's going to score a little differently. So the buildings are going to each have their own power when you place them. Animals that will score if you want to have animals that are the same kind of animals when you play them. So if I play a tile where I already have pigs, not only do I score the pigs on the tile I just played, I also scored the pigs that I played previously that were in the same zone. There's ship tiles that you get to play that will determine player order. You get to sell trade goods. The castles give you a wild action that you can just use for anything. There's a kind of a technology, not really a tree. There's just technology tiles that you can play. They're called knowledge tiles. They will give you some asymmetrical powers throughout the game, which can be incredibly powerful depending on what strategy you're going for. And they actually, a lot of times when you decide to pick up certain knowledge tiles, it can really push you towards a certain strategy, which I think is fairly typical with technology type games where you have some sort of asymmetrical ability. One thing I'm really excited for about the Castles of Burgundy is the new version that's coming out. And I'm hoping it's coming out this year. It should ship this year, I believe. And it's all 3D terrain, all 3D pieces. The game
is so good.
It is gorgeous. And I'm so excited to get it.
That is being put out there by Awaken Realms, I believe, is publishing that. That makes me really excited because their stuff is always really high quality.
Yeah, they do a great job.
This was one that I had in my cart and dropped like 3 or 4 times. I went back and forth. And finally, knowing that you were going to back it, I decided to just back off, save myself the money and just play your copy. But yeah, I can't wait. Really, because the production value is wonderful. But if the gameplay isn't there, that doesn't really mean much.
Right.
And because the gameplay is there, and because this is such a classic, great game that revolves around such a simple dice placement mechanism, Castles of Burgundy is great. It's wonderful. And I really enjoy it when everybody plays with the asymmetric maps rather than the same starting
I do too.
Map. It just gives everybody a little bit different of a strategy to play with. You know that everybody's doing something just a little different. It's fun to see how all those territories get built out. And you're almost kind of creating your own scoring synergies and combos as you build out those territories, and as you decide what you're going to place where, and trying to decide timing and when to trigger all that stuff and how to build it up. It's so good.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
So good.
It's very balancy as far as that goes on. Like you said, Doug, timing is critical in that game, and especially because you're kind of competing for whoever finishes all of their terrain tile types. You're going to get the bonus tiles for bonus points at the end or to score at the end of the game as well. So you're competing for not only the tiles on the board. Locations are numbered 1 through 6. Like you said, this is a dice placement game. Only a certain number of tiles are going to be available each round. So you're competing for the tiles themselves, but you're also competing it's almost a race to try to get as many of your things built up first. And a lot of those things come down to, in my opinion, how you place your buildings. The way you place your buildings, the order in which you place your buildings, because you can get bonus actions and everything else. It can be a make or break your game, depending on which buildings you take and when you place them. It's a great game. I love Castles of Burgundy.
Yeah, this is one that I haven't played, that listening to you gush about it Sounds like one that I need to get to the table.
Oh, you really do need to play this, Nathan. Yeah, Castles of Burgundy is great. And it really is a classic at this point, right? Like, this is kind of one that I kind of feel like it's okay for me to say, if you consider yourself a board gamer, at some point you should probably check this out.
Yeah, I agree. When they're doing a big production like what they're doing this year, they're releasing this year, it's got to be considered a classic, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's a really good pick. Awesome choice, Castles of Burgundy. My number one is another newer game, but it has absolutely won me over. This is the one that you saved for me. My number one is Earth. And I know that this game is getting a lot of hype right now. It's kind of on the hotness, and I will just say it is well deserved. This game is incredible. It's kind of a maybe a little more advanced Wingspan, not so advanced Arc Nova, but it plays really quick, faster than any of those games. Based around the premise that you are building an island, and your island is going to be a 4x4 grid of cards. You're going to have flora cards, and you're going to have terrain cards that build out that island. The game just has, you have 4 actions. When one person selects an action on their turn, they get sort of a beefier edition of that action, but everybody else gets to follow with a minor version of that action, which again just minimizes the downtime and you're just doing something all the time in this game. You're constantly reassessing your cards, constantly assessing the icons, how you want to grow or sprout your flora cards that are out on your island. You're managing, how much dirt you have to pay for things, really building up a very enjoyable engine, because every time one of those actions gets selected, after everyone has taken either the major or minor version of that action, then everybody gets to fire off all of the cards on their island that match those colors. In that way, you're also building a really fun engine that if you do it right, by the time the game ends, you are just firing off a whole cascade of really great things. You're throwing cards into your compost, you're pulling cards out of your compost to pay for sprouts, and then you're paying sprouts for growth, and you're turning growth into dirt, and you're doing all these things. And it just works really well. It's a great puzzle to solve, very clean, doesn't take a lot of time to play. Love this game so much.
This is one of those that pays very well to see what other players are doing. If you can surmise what the other players are most likely going to be focusing on, it's nice to build into your engine certain things that will take advantage of actions. That way you don't have to select that action, and you can pick the better action that's going to benefit you more without having to take something that's maybe not as good for you, but you've already built that into your engine. So when someone else takes it, you do your follow action and then fire off all your associated cards. I mean, it can be hugely beneficial, because there is a big difference between you taking and getting the better version of that action versus the minor one. But if you can take advantage of the fact that, oh yeah, well, like our play that we played, Doug, I knew what Logan was going to be doing most of the time, and he was right before me, and I planned that into my strategy that, okay, Logan's probably going to be doing this, so I'm going to build this into my board because I can see what he's doing over there. That way, when he takes the red action, I'm good. I'm set to do what I want to do on my turn, because I'm going to have all the resources I want to be able to plant, which is usually what I was doing, was planting.
Yeah, that was awesome. He was taking that red action, which is the compost action, and so you were building a red engine, because you knew that every time he selected that, you'd be able to just fire off your whole island of cards. It was awesome.
Really enjoy Earth. I played it the first time, and I thought I was going to win, and I was really surprised about that. But then I lost by 2 stinking points, but I still very much enjoyed it. Doug and I are playing a game on BGA, and the implementation there is very well done. Takes out a lot of that clutter, but it is one of those games that you definitely need to play it in person before you even attempt to play it online.
Yeah, and it is much better at the table. You can play this in an hour, pretty easy, even with a full player count. One of the things about BGA, and this is a little bit of a side thing, I'll just mention this really quick. Whenever you play a game on BGA that allows players to do stuff simultaneously, it takes it a long time to get through that, because you're constantly waiting for everyone, and it kind of has to cycle through all the players and determine what they're doing. And so one turn can actually take a really long time on BGA.
Yes.
And that is one thing that I don't like about it. But otherwise, the implementation is really good. But this is so much better at the table. This is one that just, anytime somebody wants to bust this out and play it, I'm always game.
I don't know how many times I heard stated, and myself included, I said this multiple times, and I didn't know who was going to win. It didn't matter. I just stated multiple times, and I know other people did, that this was just such a great game. It was our first playthrough, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is really fun. And like you said, Doug, I think it's worth the hype. I really do.
Yeah, for sure. My number one, Earth. Nathan.
All right. My number one is a classic from the year 2003. And this is a full-fledged classic. Attica. Attica is one of my favorite all-time games.
You love this game.
I do love this game. Easily in my top 5. This is a game that I used to be able to pull off the shelf and play with Brent. We'd play it 10 minutes. In 10 minutes, we could pull it off the shelf, play it. I could lose, and we could clean it up and put it back on the shelf. And we had played this game so many times. Pow, 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 taking those turns and enjoying every minute of it. I did get the chance to introduce this game to you guys at BGG and had very much mixed reviews. Andy didn't like it at all. And
so I actually got a chance to play this here at HQ. You had taught it to us that one night, and I won, which I think contributed to my liking of the game. But I did really enjoy the game quite a bit. We played it again at BGG, and I could kind of start to see what some of the criticisms are. Just, we've talked about it before, but this whole idea that this person's about to win, so everybody's going to gang up on them. And we've had this conversation, and probably a little bit better as a 2-player game, because it's always just one versus the other one, and you don't feel like you're being teamed up on quite as much. But I like Attica. I think it's good. I would be curious to try the US Telegraph. You've mentioned that this kind of got re-implemented a little bit, and I'd be curious to just see if that is any good.
It is almost exactly. It is exactly the same game, except for the names have been changed to protect the innocent. It is just as good, just not Attica for me. Sure. So it has a little bit of a facelift. But it is in
print.
Yes, but it is in print, yes, and available to order. So if you do want a copy of it, that is available, and you can find US Telegraph. And I was also really impressed that this is one of the original games that I had in German. When we played it in BGG, it was in English, and I was totally taken back because I didn't realize that it was available in English. But I very much enjoy my copy. And funny story, my wife and I played this game years ago, and we were playing it at the counter, and I dropped one of the red streets tokens, and I heard it hit the floor, and it was gone. We looked all over. We moved chairs. We moved everything to try to find this. It was like 4 years later that we had to replace the dishwasher. And this tile had dropped because it was right next to the back of the counter. And under the kick plate is a lip that piece was magically bounced up and fell behind the dishwasher. And so when we had to replace the dishwasher 4 years later, there's this token. There's this red street under there. So that was funny. I was upset because I had lost my my game was incomplete and couldn't be played with the red. Fortunately, there was 3 other colors, and it's really best at 2 players anyways. Attica, such a great game with a long, dumb story.
Well, it definitely tells you that it is a classic when your copy is in German.
Yes.
It's like right up there with the first time I played Puerto Rico, it was also in German. So I had to have my cousins translate what all the buildings did because I had no idea.
My German vocabulary consists of words from Attica. So, so yeah, that's our top 5, right? Everybody was, yep. Top 5 territory building games. So what made your top 5? What made your number 1? Let us know. Shoot us a message at meeplenation@gmail.com. Join us on our Facebook group, Meeple Nation Off Air.
Until next time.
We'll see you counting your top 5 territory building games. We built this territory.
Dun-dun-dun-dun.
We built this territory.
At the game table.
Roll.
Okay, turn it off.
Thank you for listening and being a part of Meeple Nation. If you would be so kind as to follow, subscribe, share, and rate or review this podcast, it really helps to spread the fun. You can be more involved in supporting the podcast by joining the nation at patreon.com/MeepleNation, or you can find a link at the top of our webpage, meeplenation.com. And while you're there, look at all our extra content. There are links to all our past episodes, a wide variety of blogs, pictures from our Instagram feed, and bios for all the hosts and our awesome bloggers. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, all under Meeple Nation. If you would like to chat with the hosts or other members of the nation, you can join our Facebook group, Meeple Nation Off Air. We hope to see you again at a game night, a con, or maybe a suspense-driven evening of Werewolf. Thank you for listening and supporting Meeple Nation, and stay tuned for next week's episode.
Thank you so much for listening. We very much want to thank our patrons who help keep the podcast running. I personally want to thank my co-hosts for all the help they provide with both content here on the podcast, in addition to what we have available on our website. Without them, the podcast would not happen. If you too would like to support the podcast, you can join the nation at patreon.com/Meeple_nation, or you can find a link to Patreon at the top of our webpage, meeplenation.com. If you have any questions, comments, or games you feel should be on our radar, you can always reach us at meeplenation@gmail.com. We can't wait to hear from you. I am grateful to Doug and Andy who helped me edit episodes, and I want to thank James and Kim Clark who do the editing on our blogs and on our webpage, which can be found at meeplenation.com. We want to thank Brain Detergent for our music. If you want to find more from him, you can follow his links that can be found on our webpage, or simply search for Brain Detergent on YouTube to find more of his tracks. Thank you again for listening and being part of the Meeple Nation community.